Have you ever felt like you're on autopilot, that you're just going through the motions? You go to work, you tend to your family, you tend to your pets, you see your friends, but everything feels kind of meaningless? That was me. This time last year, that was me. Even though on paper it seemed like I had the dream life, I had the high paying tech job, I got promoted a bunch of times, I was the youngest at my company, I had a great group of friends. I mean, I still have a great group of friends, but, anyways, I had a great group of people around me. Everything on paper, amazing. Yeah, I was so profoundly sad and I could not understand why. And I struggled with this a lot because I didn't want to be ungrateful. I didn't want to feel that I am not grateful for the things that I have in my life. But eventually it got to a point that I can only call a quarter life crisis, where I just realized I cannot live a life like this forever. That I needed to feel fulfilled and I was not getting that from the life I was leading. So whenever I am in a transition period of my life, or there is something that I want to understand, I tend to turn to books. I'm an avid reader. I believe knowledge is power. I grew up with that sentiment and I encourage everyone to read. Honestly, it changed my life. And I believe that you can learn so much from fiction books just as much as you can learn from nonfiction books. It's just a different setting of learning. Yeah, so I'm sure you're thinking, yeah, Cami, great spiel, but why does this matter? Well, because today I want to talk about a book that completely changed my life last year. I was looking for books that people had said made a significant impact on their life, and this book caught my eye because it's told in a way that's very different than most quote unquote self help books that are out there. So, this is told as a story. The book is called The Cafe on the Edge of the World by John Strzelecki. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Do not come at me if I'm not. Anyways, basically, this book is about self discovery and personal growth, and it centers around three questions. The questions are: why are you here? Are you fulfilled? And are you afraid of death? To give you a little background, the main character, his name is John. He is on his way somewhere, he gets lost, ends up at this cafe in the middle of nowhere, but it's not a normal cafe. And at that cafe, he is asked these three questions that I mentioned. And essentially, it is his journey of self reflection that occurs over this meal at this cafe that challenges both him and the reader to think about whether or not they're living their life intentionally or on autopilot. It was very interesting. It did not read like a self help book at all. I actually quite enjoyed it, and I probably will add it to my rereads every year. So I basically have a list of books that are my rereads every year, one of which is Tuesdays with Maury. Anyhow, the waitress talks about feeling fulfilled and feeling aligned, and then the chef comes in and starts talking to him about discovering your true purpose. Purpose is a very big point in this book. It's a main theme in this book. More than anything, it's fulfillment and purpose. So the first question reflects on this concept of purpose. It's why are you here? And in this question, you have to understand it's not about what's your job responsibilities. It's not about what you do for work. It's not about all the responsibilities that you have in your life. This question is about your why. It's not about your responsibilities. It's about why are you here, your personal purpose. As in, what is it that excites you? What impact do you want to have? So they go on to talk about how many of us are seeking external validation or external achievements, and that we think once we achieve these things that we will feel we fulfilled our purpose. But there's a fallacy in that logic. Because in the book, they argue that purpose comes from within. So they hit you hard with the first question, and honestly, I had to admit to myself I was one of those people. I grew up with so many people telling me how much potential I have and how many great things I was going to do. And it made me feel this pressure to succeed, to be the most successful, to do the things, not necessarily in competition with others, but in competition with the precedent that was set for myself. And so as they were discussing purpose, I felt like I had to do these impossible and amazing things. And I'm not going to lie, I still have that desire and push in me, but it's motivated internally versus externally now. Before, it was to meet other people's expectations. Now I have those desires to achieve my goals, but it's a personal motivation, internal, intrinsic motivation, not extrinsic motivation. That being said, they do talk about how your purpose does not have to be grand or life changing, that your purpose can be as small as or large as calls to you, and that your purpose has to be reflected on within you. Obviously, this sounds like a very big and overwhelming concept, but they do give you actionable steps. For this specific question, they ask you to start asking yourself the questions: what is it that excites you? What is it that helps? What is it that you do that you continually lose track of time while doing it? These are introductory questions that can start you on the right track of understanding what it is your purpose is and what it is that makes you feel fulfilled, which comes later in the book. And then they hit you with the challenges. And one of the challenges in figuring out your purpose is it's really uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to go against the grain, and it's uncomfortable to admit to yourself what you feel your purpose is, especially if it doesn't align with what you feel other people think your purpose should be. And it also can be uncomfortable because you could seek out those answers and realize you actually don't know what your purpose is. But this book emphasizes that you don't have to have all the answers. This is something I struggled with a lot. I don't like a problem I can't solve. I like to have the answers. And it was very difficult for me to accept the fact that I might not have the answers I'm looking for yet. And the important thing is to start the journey. And it's true. This is something I struggle with in myself a lot, a sense of perfectionism that I need to do things perfect. But it's true that you can never get to that level unless you start. You can't just flip a switch and become perfect at something or know all the answers, especially with something as important as your purpose. So that's the first question. Why are you here? I realize, for example, I love to paint. I love it, but I wouldn't want to sell my paintings. That's something that I enjoy. The act of monetizing on it would make it less enjoyable for me. Something I did realize was very fulfilling to me was having meaningful conversations. That moment where you have a meaningful conversation with someone and then something clicks and they're changed after that conversation, or you're changed after that conversation. And so I started there. Conversation. I looked at my hobbies, and these were the things I came up with. But I'll be honest with you, even with all this reflection, I am still figuring out exactly what it is my purpose is. I don't think I need to have that answer yet. I'm only 25, but like I said, I like to know things, so I still struggle with it. This book, though, gave me some perspective on appreciating the journey. I do think with this book, I am a lot closer to my purpose, though. And I feel a lot more aligned with what my purpose is. And this didn't happen automatically. I mean, I'm saying this now, and it's been almost a year since I read this book the first time. So that just goes to show how long this journey is. And a lot of these answers that I finally came up with that aren't set in stone, I only came up with literally in January. So a big aspect of this book, a big point in this book is not to rush and to expect to have answers too soon because you're setting yourself up for failure. So I thought about that as well, and I'm trying to enjoy the journey. So the second question, the one that hit me, I think, the hardest because this was where I was feeling the most out of line personally, was the question, are you fulfilled? And they start off with this question by first asking, what does fulfillment mean? Because I think we as a society have a very different description of fulfillment than what it originally is supposed to be and what it is in its actual nature. So as a society, we're taught that fulfillment equals money plus status, right? But that is not the case. In truth, fulfillment is about feeling joy in your life, feeling that sense of contentment in your life. And on that point, we also tend to measure fulfillment in the form of external validation, promotions or social approval, community approval, etc. When in reality, that external validation is so fleeting, whereas your internal validation, that lasts. Yet, as a society, we still seek out external validation. I mean, I'm definitely one of those people. I'm getting better at it, and I think in different aspects of my life, it doesn't impact me as much, but career career wise, for sure, I was seeking external validation. It felt good for people to be like, wow, that's what you're doing. Oh, wow, you're the youngest at your company. I'm not going to lie, it hits your ego. And then you start craving that validation for people to be like, wow, you're doing well. Look what you're doing. But in reality, who cares about what other people think if I'm miserable? And I was miserable. I did not feel at all fulfilled with what I was doing. And I do agree with, I mean, it's not in this book, but I agree with the sentiment that you don't have to do your passion as a job. You don't have, that's not how life works. Sometimes you gotta work. That being said, I mean, even the book kind of talks about this, expands on the idea of small joys, enjoying your cup of coffee, enjoying the time you spend with your family, enjoying the little things in your everyday life. So I do agree, or I do understand that point. That being said, your job should also not be completely unfulfilling or unaligned with what your purpose is as well. Like in my case, I was selling tech hardware and software solutions to companies. It was very interesting, and at first I felt fulfilled because I was learning. But then there came a point where there wasn't as much left to learn, and it felt very repetitive, and I didn't feel like I was really helping people in the way I wanted to help people. I was helping people find solutions. So in a sense, I was helping people, but it just didn't align with the way I wanted to help people or feel fulfilled. I wanted to help people on a much more intimate level. And in terms of sales, it's just not really like that. It can be, that's a whole different topic. Anyways, it just didn't work out for me personally, which is fine, right? A lot of people do feel fulfilled, and a lot of my colleagues have been in that role or industry most of their life and they love it. So everybody has a different criteria for themselves. For me personally, it wasn't fitting and it wasn't making me feel good. Another topic they talk about when asking yourself this question is to avoid the someday trap. You know, I'll be happy and feel fulfilled when I get this job. I'll be happy and feel fulfilled when I get married, or when I have kids, or when I have a house, or when I get that degree. But the reality is, it is a trap. And I was, again, part of this trap. Okay, I'll be happy when this and this and this occur. But in reality, all I was doing was postponing my own happiness. The fact of the matter is, fulfillment and feeling fulfilled is an ongoing practice. There's no end destination to fulfillment. You continually practice showing up in life in a way that makes you feel fulfilled. It's the art of being present and noticing and being really in tune with the present moment, which I think we all struggle with. We're all always looking at the future, always looking to the horizon. What's next? What's next? What's next? Or we're consumed by our past, picking and nitpicking at everything that happened in our past. But rarely do we ever just stay present in the moment. And I'm not going to tell you to meditate or anything because honestly, I don't even meditate. I can't even meditate. It's hard. But I think even being present is a form of meditation. For example, when I walk my dog, before I used to just scroll on my phone while I was walking my dog and literally ignore my surroundings. And I live in a beautiful place. There's a lot of greenery to look at when you walk your dog. So I made the conscious decision to not scroll on my phone while I'm walking my dog and to just pay attention to the nature around me. I felt like I was lifted out of a fog. It was really weird, as if I was seeing the whole scene for the first time. Because before I ignored it. It's like, you know how you can see your nose, but your mind just ignores that? Same idea. Like I just ignored the existence of all this beautiful nature around me, and I felt so disconnected from the present moment. In that even small act, I started to feel way more prepared for my day because I mean, I walk the dog in the morning. So I wake up in the morning and maybe I'll put in a podcast or an audiobook and I'll just walk the dog and pay attention. And sometimes I even take out the podcast, I take out the audiobook, and I just listen to the sounds of nature. I watch the squirrel. Squirrels are very funny. Have you ever actually watched the squirrel? They're very funny. and they're very interesting and they have their own little personalities. I'll watch the squirrels. Watch my dog and see how enthralled she is with sniffing the greenery. Whatever it might be, it sounds silly, but I was just present. Another way I practice this, which honestly I have practiced it in this way, I guess subconsciously, since I was younger, I'm not on my phone when I'm out with people. Like, I don't text all the time, I'm not scrolling. If I'm with you, I barely touch my phone. I'm very present. And it makes a huge difference because I get to really enjoy the company that I'm with and observe the people I'm with, and I get so much more out of the situation and experience than if sat on my phone and scrolled or texted at the same time as I was out with the people that I care about. Because before smartphones, this was a non-issue. You were present when you saw your friends. There was so much intentionality, but now we're very mindless, and it all seems very small and negligible, but all these small things compound to have a significant impact on your life and a significant impact on how fulfilled you feel. It's like that trend on TikTok. I don't know if it's still a trend, but it was a big thing last year, which was about romanticizing your life. And there were some girls who did this to an extreme, and people were, making fun of them. But honestly, why? They're probably having so much more fun than you are right now because they're just enjoying the heck out of their life. What's the problem? It looks so fun. I started doing it, and you know what? It is so fun. My brother, my brother and I were talking about this actually. Came over the other day, and I made him a yogurt bowl, and he was talking to me about how he loves that girls just make nice things and make things pretty. When he makes his yogurt bowl at home, he just dumps whatever it is in the carton that the yogurt originally came in and just is focused on hitting his macros. Whereas for me, I'm still focused on hitting my macros, I'm not going to lie. But I put it in a pretty bowl and I lay out the fruit real nice and I lay out the granola real nice. And this doesn't take a long time. I mean, it adds maybe 2-3 minutes to making the yogurt bowl. And then I just throw the dish in the dishwasher. So it's not even that I have to do the dishes. And when he said that, it made me think about the fact that I do feel a lot of empathy towards men because, and I think this is slightly changing now, or is at the precipice of a change at this stage of society. But men have a lot less little joys in their life, I think, than women do. Everything is like, oh, hyper masculinity. If you do this, if you do that, you're too girly, you're not masculine. Like, dude, why is making a yogurt bowl look nice not masculine? Why is caring about your fashion sense not masculine? And this is like an America thing because in a lot of countries in Europe, a lot of countries in the Middle East, a lot of countries in Asia, even in South America, men care about what they wear and how they look in their style, and it's not seen as a non masculine thing. But in American culture, I've noticed that if you care about keeping yourself put together and well groomed and your fashion sense, it's seen as a non masculine thing to do. I don't get it. Why take away these small joys in life? Like, they're enjoyable and they can feel fulfilling. And who cares what other people think? Because the right people in your life are not going to judge you because you make pretty food or you care about what you wear. Like, honestly, we're so afraid of people's judgment and to be like cast out of society. But is someone really going to give you an issue because you want to make your yogurt bowl pretty? No. So just like do the damn thing and be fulfilled and enjoy your life. Enjoy the small joys. Get that coffee machine. Make your yoga bowl pretty. Snap a picture. I mean, you don't have to post it. I snap pictures of all my pretty food. I never post them, but it's just nice to look back and be like, wow, I made that like for myself, or I made that for me and my friend, or I made that for my family, you know? Anyway, so he asked about are you fulfilled? And the book recognizes that fulfillment cannot always come from your professional pursuits. You know, we all have responsibilities that we have to attend to, but there is a balance between attending to your responsibilities and working a professional career that leaves you miserable. And it's finding a balance between those and then filling the other time in your life with fulfilling activities, and fulfilling moments. And doing so does not even mean changing up your whole entire lifestyle. It might be putting some more focus on your hobbies. It might be being more present with your family. It might be just spending an extra few minutes to make your yogurt bowl look pretty. Whatever it is, do it. It makes a difference. I used to think it's stupid and silly, and what's the point? I'm so busy. I'm doing so many things. I don't have time. I was traveling all the time, exhausted and burnt out. I was like, what's the point? The point is you. The point is you. Not everything has to have a point. The point can be that it's enjoyable. Like, it does not have to have an end benefit. Everything in this capitalistic mentality is like, don't do X unless you get paid out Y. But the reality of the situation, or you get whatever, the reality of the situation is not everything has to have an end meaning or an end result or an ROI, for lack of a better term, return on investment. For those of you who work in the corporate field, it doesn't need to be that. The ROI, the return on investment, can be your joy. That's it. Like, that is a valid enough reason to do a thing. And to close out that question, before I move on to the next one, on the topic of someday trap, please do not get yourself in this someday trap, because I was in that someday trap. I see a lot of my peers in that someday trap. I even see my parents in that someday trap. Like, everyone I look at in one way, shape, or form is in this someday trap. When X happens or Y happens, everything will be good. I'll feel fulfilled. I'll feel this. I'll feel that. But the reality of the situation is there's no perfect timing. There's no perfect moment for anything. If there's something that you want and you see it, grab it and run with it. Because you'll come to realize that the perfect moment never came, that aha moment never came, and you wasted all those opportunities in your life for joy because you felt you were not ready or too scared, or you thought you had more time, or you thought the situation wasn't perfect enough. In reality, you gotta go in. You gotta go all in, regardless of the circumstance, and just have faith. Like, you have to have faith that things will work out as long as you're true to your heart. Honestly. Honestly, please, if you believe anything, believe that. Do not get into this someday trap. The last question is, are you afraid of death? And this one was a very interesting one because before I read that book, I didn't think I was afraid of death. I always had this belief that if it's my time to die, I'll die in my house or going and living my life. So I was never afraid to, I'm not going to put myself in purposely dangerous situations, but I wasn't afraid to go live life and fearing my passing. The only fear I would have before was just for the impact my passing would have on my loved ones, but not a fear to leave this world. This book changed my opinion on it though, because it was talking about how the fear of death often stems from regret of not living a life that was fulfilling or meaningful. And when I read that, especially because I was in this stage where I was feeling so unfulfilled, I was like, crap, maybe I am a little bit afraid of death. Because if I died tomorrow, in that moment, right? If I died tomorrow, yeah, I've done some great things in my life and had some amazing moments, but I would feel that I left something unfinished, that I never actually went and fulfilled my purpose or lived my dreams or lived in a life that was entirely my own. I was so living for other people, and it made me realize, dang. And it really slapped me in the face because if you think about it, regret is, and they talk about this in the book, regret is things left unsaid, actions not taken, dreams not pursued. And you know what? I was living in that. All of those applied to me. I wouldn't say my feelings when I felt them. I always held myself back. I was so afraid to be vulnerable that I kept everyone at arm's length. I didn't do the hard thing like leaving my job because I was scared, and I still held on. My ego still wanted that external validation. And I didn't pursue my dreams because, again, I was afraid of what my social circle, including, family, extended family, whatever, would think about me, completely shifting my path from what was seen as a very successful path, even though I was miserable. And I was thinking, it sucks when you get slapped by reality. That's basically what happened. I was like slapped with, dang, I BS'd even myself into thinking that I was enjoying this life and I was happy, when in reality, I was not living an authentic life. Maybe I was authentic in my existence, but not in my, or like in my presence, but not in my existence, if that makes sense. I was authentic in how I presented to the people around me for the most part, barring complicated circumstances. But I was not living authentically to myself, like my soul. I wasn't living authentically to my purpose. I was living in very much a state of fear, and I was very ego driven. And it's understandable. I mean, if anyone's ever been, I think, severely bullied, or you had, really hard times growing up, I think when there's this shift and people start praising you and, stroking your ego, you become very attached to that, because most of your life you were just seeking to be heard and to be seen and to be recognized. And once you get that, and then you get it so much, it goes to your head. You think like, I am nothing without this. Even if you don't want to admit it to yourself. I never admitted that to myself word for word. But at the subconscious level, what it was is I felt that if I wasn't X and Y and Z, then I would be less valuable or less important, or I'd just be nothing. And that was my biggest fear, to just be nothing. But I realized that, to go back to the previous question when it talked about impact, I realized that I didn't feel I was having an impact in what I was doing, and that I was going to be nothing regardless, because no amount of money or praise in the world matters. None of it matters. Because at the end of the day, people remember how you made them feel. People remember your presence and your example. They don't remember you working like a dog, or traveling all the time and climbing the corporate ladder, like cool, whatever. People aren't going to remember you for that. But for your impact on others, how you make people feel, how you make people think, if you live your life authentically and they see you pursuing your dreams, how you inspire people, those are things that leave an impact. And legacy has always been an important thing for me. I always wanted to leave a lasting impact on the world, whether it be individuals. I never thought, like the whole world or less than. I mean, even one person is meaningful enough to me, but I wanted to leave an impact. Because one time when I was younger, I read this quote that you die twice. The first time is when you physically die, and the second time is when people stop remembering you. And I guess you can look at that in many different ways. But for me, I looked at that as, I want people to remember me for the kindness that I showed, for the kind words that I shared, for the inspiration that I gave, and for the life that I lived. And I wanted it to be a story of someone who, and I wanted it to be a story of someone who is authentic and true and kind. Someone that had a positive impact on people's lives, and left the world a little bit better than she found it. And with what I was doing with my life at that time, I wasn't, I couldn't claim that I was building a legacy like that. I believe in a way I impacted people based on like the feedback I've gotten over the years, but it didn't feel intentional. It just happened to be in conversations I had with people I met along the way, but it wasn't an intentional push and this is what I want to do. Whereas, for example, doing this is. And so to wrap up that question, that one also, I mean, this whole book, honestly, this whole book just slapped me, like slap one, slap two, slap three. I was not expecting to think about my life this much from such a tiny little book that was told as a funny little story. But wow, this question also slapped me in the face, because I realized it fundamentally shifted something in me. I realized I am afraid of death, but not because I'm afraid of dying. I'm afraid of dying without leaving a positive mark on this world. I am afraid of dying while living an inauthentic life. And it goes to this point because it's crazy. Just now, before I started filming this, I was on Instagram and I saw this post about this guy that was like some finance guy. He got diagnosed with brain cancer. So he quit his job, he sold everything, and he became a DJ. And he lived out his last year as a DJ. And this book even talks about it like, if you had 1 year left in your life, how would you live it? And it's so funny because then I just saw this video and I was like, or this post, and I was like, do you see? You see how, like, when you're actually faced with the reality of life, everything else changes? And to finalize this point on this last question, they really emphasize, what are you going to do with this one singular life that you have? Because we think we have so much time. We're like days to weeks to months to years. We think we're all going to grow old. And yes, take care of yourself. God willing, you will grow nice and old and gray and see all your grandkids also grow old. But the reality is you could die tomorrow. The reality is anything can happen at any time. And this is a one precious life that you have. We think 100, like say you live to 100, we think 100 years is a long time. The Earth's been around for billions of years. 100 years is a blip in the space-time continuum. So make the most out of those 100 years. Why live a meaningless life to appease others and to get the approval of others and to stroke your ego when in reality you are not happy? Behind closed doors when no one else is looking, you're not happy. So then what's the point? I think in having this quarter life crisis, as I call it, I just started thinking about the ridiculousness of everything. Like, what's the point of doing anything if it's for other people? I mean, again, you take everything in the context I'm saying it. It's not about not being kind to other people, but it's about how you conduct your life and make decisions about your life and how you're setting up your life based on other people. Deciding what you want to do with your life based on other people, deciding where you want to live based on other people, deciding what you want to wear based on other people, deciding what cosmetic procedures you want to do and alter yourself based on other people. I mean, I just had this, like, I came to this realization that other people, they don't know nothing. Everyone else around you, they're just like you. They're a new human on this earth, just trying to figure it out like the rest of us. What you learn as you become an adult is that literally nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. No, not a 50-year-old, not a 60-year-old, not a 70-year-old, not an 80-year-old. Nobody knows what they're doing. I would actually argue that the only people that finally know what they're doing are the people that know they're going to die soon. Those are the people that know what they're talking about, because they see the true meaning of life and the true purpose of life shed from the societal blinds that we're given from birth. So it was all ridiculous, and I realized that I didn't want to be afraid of death. I wanted to make a meaningful impact. And it was hard because, the way society teaches you to be, it's saying, say this and don't say that. If you have certain feelings, you can only communicate them in this circumstance, but not in that circumstance. And with your family, you can do this and not that. And with your partner, you can do this and not that. And you can say this. And if you're going to start dating, you can do this and you can't do that. Bro, do what you feel is aligned with your heart. I swear to God, the right people in your life will not cower from what you give. They will not cower from you. You will not be too much. You will be exactly the right amount of everything for the right people. And you will feel so much more aligned because you look at yourself in the mirror every night and you're like, that's me. You recognize yourself in the mirror and you feel fulfilled, happy with how you conducted yourself in the day, week, month, year. So to conclude this segment or this episode, I want to ask you to do something with me, okay? It's only going to take 2 minutes, so grab a pen and paper or your notes app or whatever and do this exercise with me. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Pause after you get the questions and just write down your answers. They don't have to be, set in stone. Whatever comes to your mind first, just jot it down, all right? The first question I want you to ask yourself is, when was the last time that you felt truly alive? The second question I want you to ask yourself is, do your daily actions truly align with your desires? And the third question I want you to ask yourself, which is arguably the most important question, is what would you do differently if you only had a year left to live? All right, now pause this and come back. All right, welcome back. I hope that writing your answers to those questions helped you reflect a little bit about where you stand right now. Concluding this episode, I would say that my biggest takeaways from this book is ask yourself the big questions. Avoiding them, it doesn't do anything for you. You might feel more comfortable in that space, but you're actually just holding yourself back. So ask yourself the big questions, because those answers, or figuring out those answers, is what leads to profound transformation. The second thing I'll say that I got from this book is life is not about living some predefined script. Okay? Life is about creating your own script. There is no one but God can tell us what the predefined script of life is. And if God intended for us to know that, we would know everything and how to be. But God gave us this life to figure it out and to create our own path. So why are we following a predefined script by society where all these people are also just new to this world, just like us? It doesn't matter their status or whatever. At the end of the day, they were all babies. They were all babies that grew up and had a whole life and had to figure things out. So, yes, you can take hints from people, but there's no predefined script to your life. You need to define your own path, and you can only do that through running through the fire. There is no way up, down, about, around. No, you have to go through the fire and create your own path. And in doing so, you'll feel so much happier and so much more aligned, even if you're not fitting society's expectations. And the last thing I really learned from this book is that the people that are the most content, that they're the most fulfilled, are the people whose actions align with their values and their purpose. If your actions align with your purpose, you will always feel fulfilled. But if you're acting in a way that is unaligned with your purpose, or you don't have enough moments in your life in which you can act and align to your purpose, you're not going to be content or fulfilled. And even when I was at this old job, because obviously I didn't just leave the job, I didn't leave my job until December. When I was at this job, I just found a way to help people through my day to day. I was doing sales, and yes, I still had to do my job and get the work done. But I also used the small moments in conversation with my clients to have meaningful conversations and interesting conversations. And it made me feel a lot more fulfilled than what I was doing without that aspect. The last thing I want to say is I really hope that you read this book, because it's so short, it's such an easy read, and I believe that it will really give you a refreshed perspective on this life. And I encourage you to choose one of the three questions. Why are you here? Are you fulfilled? And are you afraid of death? Choose one of those questions and contemplate it this week. And make one change in relation to the answer to that question. And if you'd like, share your insights. The hashtag is EIKAN Podcast. Share your insights with that hashtag, and I would love to hear it, because I am so interested to hear about how this book can change your life too, or has changed your life too. All right, that's everything I have to say. You guys have a good one. I hope you have a good week. I'll talk to you next time. Peace out. Bye.